Good evening. It's a little late night stream here. Wanted to get some more progress on this, and it's been a relatively quiet week for me, and I mean that in a literal way. Had an overused voice from last week. My brother had a birthday, and it required a lot out of my voice. So it's been tickling long enough. I actually went and got myself COVID tested, and thankfully that's not what it is. Just a little overuse. So I'm gonna keep it pretty quiet tonight, pretty mellow, kind of Bob Ross, if you like. And we're gonna try to make a little progress. So I'm not gonna have my mic on the entire time for reasons I just mentioned, but I will flip it on time to time to kind of weigh in on what we're working on. So let's see here, without further ado. If I push the right button here. So we are working on attention-free inputs. So I'm calling them here eyes-free gestures. In the last prototype, if you remember it or if you missed it, it reduced the amount of attention a driver needed to put an input into a touchscreen while the driver was in motion. But it still required the driver to take a look, find the button, and push it. And so that got me thinking, well, if it's better to require less attention, what's better than a single touch? You know, one single button that you have to find on the screen. Well, it's no buttons you have to find on the screen. It's you know, what if you could like with an iPad, you know, take all 5 of your fingers and just swipe on the screen. So we outlined a few goals here. I don't know what else to call them. The sort of driving principle here. We want to reduce the amount of driver attention required, and if we don't, then we have failed in our mission here. Let people use shortcuts without taking their eyes off the road, like I just said. There's a few different types of gestures that somebody might make while focusing on the road, without taking their eyes off the road. But the screen edge swipes, I think, would actually be very interesting for a separate project. So I'm going to set those aside for the time being and just focus on multi-finger full screen gestures. I don't know if we're seeing the box I'm drawing here, but it'll make it easier to point at things. And then one of the main challenges is going to be to find a way to prototype this. I've got some interesting ideas for how to use some video to make this look more compelling. But we'll see. The video is going to need to come together pretty quick this week, so it's going to be a fun project. Of note, we need to create an interface to assign shortcuts, and this is what we're going to focus on tonight. And then we also need to determine what sort of indication gets shown on a screen when a shortcut gets triggered. So you swipe with all 5 fingers. What appears? What indicates that I say appears, but maybe you hear it. What tells you that was successful? Again, I'll probably work on that more tomorrow. Focusing tonight on the interface for assigning and customizing these shortcuts. We also outlined what we think a good default set might look like. You also have to think in terms of the demo. What will the prototype demo show? That means you have to say no to a lot of things in order to have a clear narrative there. And so we narrowed it down to 2 5-finger gestures, 2 4-finger gestures in just 2 directions, with the and one more thing example either being on the 3-finger or on the 5-finger. We'll see when we get to it. But that's kind of the cardinal directions we've got here. So up next, now that we've got this scribbled down, we need to figure out where the interface for assigning and customizing these shortcuts might live. So I'm going to dig back through some these mockups, or the UI kit that I put together in its messy state, and just closing my eyes and thinking for a second. I imagine it when you press the car button in the corner and the big sheet slides in, for lack of a better term, to have there in your quick controls a button that says edit gestures, and then that would bring up an interface. I imagine the interface for this, because we're talking about assigning to different fingers, different groups of fingers, different directions of fingers, that interface might take a bit of screen real estate in order to get right in a way that isn't too heavy and messy. I think you could do it with drop-down menus, and that would be a freaking nightmare. It might be a little bit too complicated in those menus to parse, even for somebody who's familiar with it. But I've got an idea for an interface where, if I just whiteboard over here, let's pretend this is our, I don't know if we can see this on the stream or not, pop a border on it maybe. If we've got our main screen here, that could be a modal that comes up on the screen. I can't really picture what's in here right now, but you'd assign different shortcuts to different gestures. So for example, let's imagine there's a bucket here for 5-finger swipe up, down, left, and right. Maybe we distribute these more equally. Saying it out loud, it might make sense to put them in like a compass rose kind of orientation, for your up, down, left, and right. But effectively, you'd have a list. Maybe this is the exact list of shortcuts from the previous prototype I put together with the customizable shortcuts down here. You'd browse some sort of list, you'd find the shortcut you'd want, and then you'd drag that action into one of these buckets to say, I want this to be the shortcut triggered by this action or something else. I'm getting a warning here saying my bit rate's pretty low. So I don't know how the stream looks because I can't see it. Maybe I'll take a look at that in a second. I'm going to check my stream settings here. And it says that I'm able to adjust this here. I have no idea if this, I don't know if this is going to work live, but I'm pushing the update button now. So if the stream suddenly explodes, we know why. But I should have increased the quality there. Maybe about doubled it. Okay, so again, dragging out these shortcuts into these different buckets. So, imagine, right, these have labels that are large enough to read. Details. Right, so maybe it's, I don't know, labeled on the side here. Something like this. Right, and then it's got like your cardinal directions that's listed here. I really like the idea of a compass rose now that I say out loud. You go up, down, left, right. Down, left, right. And these would be 5 fingers, 4 fingers. Oop. 5 fingers, 4 fingers. And if you want to do 3 fingers, obviously it's the same sort of idea. You just, make more room for an extra row here. Seeing all that on the screen at once would be kind of terrifying. I think 8 would be the upper limit here. If you were to add one more row here, this becomes intimidating. That just looks freaking scary. So again, this is one way to handle it. Another way would be to say, iteration on that, where it says 5 fingers here with up, down, left, right, up above it. But this is a drop-down menu. And so I've got that somewhere, probably over here somewhere. An element I can just grab, I hope, pretty quickly. Here, this guy. Oh, it's gonna be the wrong side, great. I'll zoom in here and let's shrink it down. See what I'm saying? It'd be a drop down of sorts where you could pick the number of fingers you're assigning for it, which I think could work really well. Zoom on out, come back over to here. That's right, so instead of just being 5 fingers, paste it inside the text. That's just what I wanted, Figma. All right, zoom her out. So something closer to this, where, can you do this? Does that not work? It works in a weird way. Okay, whatever. You'd only see 4 on the screen at a time, and that makes it a lot less intimidating, ultimately. Let's see, like this, like that. Right, see what I'm driving at here? So it'd be 5 fingers, and then you'd find your shortcuts in these menus up here. It's sort of a 3-column thing. I'm sorry, I'm seeing it in my head. I know it's not something everybody has top of mind for them. Right, so you're browsing your columns of different settings, and over here, you've got a sort of like a, assortment of different icons, like you saw before. Right, so I want this one down here, and you can drag it into the downs. Now it's 5 fingers down. That sort of thing. And then one more variation would be the compass rows I mentioned. Ooh, this black is so garish. Let me fix that. Let's go to here, all right. There, much more human. And again, one more of these over here. Be the same sort of selector on the side, which is nice and syllabant. Something like this, not necessarily this. And then these are all, I should really lock this guy down. Let's get him away. Right. Right. So, like it says on the tin, it's a compass rose. Maybe like that, and then left and right are hung to the side a little bit more. Because we probably have more horizontal space than vertical space available to us. So this sort of a thing, right? Maybe this isn't centered perfectly. It's just off to the side, like so-ish, whatever. Where you are choosing your swipe direction. I think, some sort of a graphic indicating what is meant by up, down, left, right would make sense. Like a hand with arrows pointing in the direction of motion or something. Yeah, I can also picture a looping animation, just chilling out somewhere saying, this is how these gestures will work. You tap on one, it shows the hand swiping to the side, and this is triggering that action. Like a little infographic explainer thing, which would make it easier for folks to understand what this is actually trying to tell them. That said, while that would be interesting and I think worth exploring, that might be out of the scope for the time we've got for this project. I think there needs to be explainer text on the screen. I like to say people often make the mistake of thinking that people don't read text in an interface. And the truth is, people do read text in an interface if they're confused. So the idea is you need to make sure you have text there if there's a situation where a user might reasonably get confused and want to go in search of an answer. So yeah, and I think this interface, or this, frankly, any of these interfaces, is novel enough that it's not something people are going to immediately recognize and necessarily understand and know what to do with. So that would be good to do here. Okay, so I am leaning in this direction. Again, I might have to punt on this in the time being. This might just become the text explanation down here. Yeah, so that should work pretty well. Again, how do you get to a screen like this was the original question. And I imagine that, I think it's this one right here. This screen right here. So somewhere on here, there being a button saying configure gesture shortcuts. And the beauty of that is this is the screen that people are going to see anytime they tap on this icon. This will appear, this will be presented to people. And even if they don't know it's a feature, eventually their eyes are going to trip across those words and say, wait, gestures. And they'll have a chance to go dig in and take a look at it. So it's not the only answer to learnability, but baking in answers into the interface, sort of evergreen, not just one-time introductory things, can be a great way to make an interface more learnable. So I'm going to try to migrate these to this other page here in a second. This is mostly just for scribbling on a napkin, really. So pop this down here. I've got myself this base frame. I should probably make a component out of it, but for my purposes today, I'm going to be mangling it. Doesn't really help me. And then these guys here, I locked that one. So again, I'm going to switch the mic off here in a second to spare my voice, which is very tickly from being overused. I'm going to try to save it some overuse and focus on trying to execute one or two of these different directions here, show what that might look like, and show what the entry point to it in the settings screen might look like. So if I see folks hop onto the chat as we go here, I might switch the mic back on and say, hey, but until then, I'll pop in from time to time to explain things that might not make any sense. So the issue I'm having here is that with the spacing down here, these don't look like they're paired together anymore because this shares the same type of spacing with it, so they all look like discrete options or they all look related. So instead, thinking we make this guy vertical, park it up here, put auto down here at the bottom like that, and put gestures here in the bottom center. See how that looks. This doesn't need to be horizontal. So at this point, I'd like to be able to drop in a hand gesture icon. And I don't want to go through the process of designing one from scratch, at least not just yet. So I'm going to go steal one from the Google Material Design icon set. Which I think is going to be here. There's also another, I can't remember the name of it suddenly. You can find it. Here it is. So there's the official Google resource, and then there's this community-led effort of designing icons that match a specific style used by Google in the material design design language. And this list of new icons is pretty extensive. All the ones in these orange boxes here are ones that the community added that look like they belong to the same set, which is fantastic. So usually, if you have a word in mind, you can find an icon for it. So we got some great one finger representations here. I can't really make it too much bigger, I don't think. I guess I can. Two finger pinch, that sort of thing. There's also the one finger tapping on the screen. I'd want to get one that looked like multiple fingers. So this one's got a 2-finger, for example, which is a step in the right direction. But I like to see this with 3 touch targets at the very minimum, to make it clear that that's a hand and it's making contact with 3 points. 2 points is tricky here, but I think 3 points is it's also going to be a challenge. Or is that 2-finger double tap? I mean, gesture 2 double taps. That's not meant to be 2 points of contact. That's meant to be 2 taps with 2 points of contact. It's a gesture 2 tap, yeah. Right. The double ring is double tap. So it's really this, but with 3 fingers. Right, 1 point of contact, 2 point of contact, and we have the 3rd finger up. That might read. We'll see. Nice thing is you get them in SVG, which makes it very easy to drop into Figma as a native supported format. Another thought was to have a hand, maybe do a motion, not like a clap here, but at an angle, like a motion blur or something. This one's got little wave marks sitting next to it. This music's not doing it right now. It's got wave marks showing motion, so we got some prior art as far as motion goes. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the style we want to use here, because this is implying back and forth, and we're looking for more in a directional kind of thing. But I think we could probably get a good basis in grabbing a hand, and at least for folks who are going to be using their right hand, people who are driving on the right side of the road, and we'll have the screen in the middle. We'll be using the right hand, and so that icon makes more sense. And in opposite-handed vehicles, the left hand would make more sense. We've got the solid and the outlined versions of this, so I'm going to grab them both because I'm not sure exactly what's going to work best in that context. We got that guy. We need that guy, if memory serves. Okay. We also have our friend the diagonal hand. We've got a couple of them here, different sizes. So I'm going to grab those as a good starting point. As far as positioning and whatnot goes. I'm not sure if this is exactly a 45-degree angle to the wave there. I would imagine it probably is, but prefer to base it off of something that was created before. than to try to whip up something new, because that is often the source of things looking just slightly wrong. So we need to start with something here. I like to say the road to good runs through bad. And this one I think took a detour. Got lost in terrible. I don't think that's gonna work. And yet we try. You know, we throw things at the wall, we see what sticks and what stinks. These touch marks here. So it's basically a circle coming around the point. So you measure those distances and do something similar, something like this. Something like this, but only, you know, good. All right, I'm having a little bit of a technical issue. All right, so this isn't bad for illustrating a multiple finger gesture. It's not terrible. I might prefer it with 1, 2, 3 digits as opposed to 1, 2, 3 digits. So I'm going to play with that next. And also don't know if I prefer it upright or at an angle. I like the idea of an angle because it almost implies a sense of motion, inherently, I should say. Also, this is very similar to the hand posture of somebody reaching over to a screen to their right with their right hand. Their hand would be angled out like that if they were making contact with the screen, unless they were, pronating the wrist. So I might just continue to focus on this and see what it might look like with, 3 extended fingers as opposed to simply 2. maybe I'm too physically close to this, but I'm having trouble reading this as a touch. It's not reading so easily as a hand or with 3 fingers making contact here. I feel like this is reading more like a hand touching a screen than this other one here. This sort of, hand touching a puffy cloud kind of shape. Maybe it's just me. Also think, I don't know. I wonder if direction arrows would help in any way. Because obviously we've got a couple examples here. I guess just one example, but rotated. Showing these directional arrows, and obviously in this case, these arrows are pointing at a diagonal. But if we were to, I guess I'll do this. If we were to rotate that, why gotta be that way? Click outside, I guess. Well, it wants to be masked there. Let's pop it out. Rotate it like this. Now we have a better sense for its size in context of some of these things. So depending on how much room we have, you can do something like that where it's, obviously you get a better sense of what's being implied here. Wonder if this works as easily. This feels like the person's cleaning the screen with a cloth. I feel like the thumb definitely helps here because it helps distinguish points of contact. So this might be a good workable icon, at least to put here. I think on the following screen where we talk about 4 fingers, 5 fingers, and whatnot. I don't know if iconography is going to be clear enough in this kind of an aesthetic. And again, my ultimate goal here is not to try to create a new aesthetic or redefine their design language. Just to find something that looks like it could fit in there and feel at least somewhat passable as a citizen of this design language, I guess. So working on sizing here. Looks like these are all crammed into a 42 by 42 kind of space. So we'll want to make sure that ours feels, I guess, part of that set in that way. It's actually pretty good right there. So now that I see it in rough position, I'm going to draw a frame around it that matches that padding with this object here, for example. So we can grab this. That way, we've got a frame 42 by 42 of the right size that we need for this. And this stuff is inside it. So now we can move it as a framed object, which is the right dimensions we need it to be. I also believe, I'm going to turn my screen brightness up. I also believe, well, I think I knew what the color code for that was, but now I'm having difficulty matching it. 75 or something like that. No, 50. 50 looks pretty close here. Trying to decide if I like that. I can say right off the bat, this arrow is not in style, right? Not in keeping with the other styles here. We got those arrows here. We got this arrow here. So there's definitely a line with rounded edges and kind of aesthetic. So we'll probably just borrow from one of these. We know what arrows look like. So it's just a matter of taking one of those arrows, putting it to use in this context like so. So we'll just mask that out. So it's showing us what we want to see. In my estimation, that already makes it feel more at home with these other icons because it's clearly related, that visual continuity. Notice we've got here a stroke weight, which is a bit heavier, and it might be, for example, heavier than these lines here. I think if we go any heavier though, we start competing with the weight of the actual finger. Which, you know, it's gonna look the way it looks. Yeah, that'd be about the same as the finger width. Yeah, I don't want to get there. We do have this stroke weight, so we have that similarity. I don't know if it's exact, but it looks visually very similar. All right, I'm feeling a lot better about this. And that might be good enough to keep us, you know, to tick this box in the meantime. I'm not completely sold that this belongs here with mirrors and steering. The groupings here aren't exactly obvious to me. There may be a good logic behind this. I mean, obviously we've got camera and camera stuff, right? Recording in Sentry mode. Recording being dash cam, which changes to the word recording, I believe, when it starts to record. Mirrors and steering is physical hardware controls, but then so is fold mirrors, which is also mirrors. We've also got window lock, glove box. I mean, these are physical controls, child lock. So it's really hard for me to say. These are, I guess, controlled by the mouse wheel, the steering wheel, as opposed to these other ones. So that's the only similarity I can imagine for these guys. It's an adjustment, I suppose, where these are settings. Yeah, these are settings. So fold mirror, child lock, window lock. I believe these are just toggles. Turn them on and off. But these, I tap into it and it gives me an interface to actually configure it further. So it is very much in keeping with gestures. Yeah. So I think because this is getting a little bit close to the edge here, 40 is okay. Feels like it might be a little bit far. I'm wondering if snudging these over might make more sense. Now, something like that, because we don't have as much space as we do down here, up here. Got some flexibility, it looks like, in the design language, that sort of thing. Oh, we got the spacing all wrong here. This one here is tricky because it's rotated, and so the arrows you use to resize it are different from the arrows you use to move it. I think I did that backwards. Yeah, I sure did. Not that. This. I'm wondering if the auto here, which I think this could work, but it could also look better. I wonder if it makes more sense to treat it sort of like a segmented control here. I don't know, because these, if it's gray, you tap on something else and it moves the gray selection. That's not exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking more of I enable the mode, I disable the mode, that's like that. Still wonder if that could work, right? You could take this, effectively take this shape, duplicate it, rotate it, right? So effectively, this is your shape, which is sit up here at the edge. That could work, but then this here at the bottom would just be a blue style toggle, right? So it would be like that instead, which you could turn on or off. It's a new element. I don't have anything like that in the UI currently, but that might actually glue these together in a more comfortable way, because they're related, but it's a little bit less obvious. It's a big lesson for me. I just watched the Beatles documentary, which was fantastic. But one of the things that really stood out to me about it was how quick folks were to pick up a new idea and try it, in most cases. And it was never about finding the right answer. It was never about finding an answer they could call perfect. It was really all about finding a better answer each time. And so that really becomes the question. Anytime there's something new possibility here, it's like, well, do we think it's better than what we've got? If so, we should try it. It doesn't matter where the idea came from. It doesn't matter how much time I sunk into a different flavor of it. It's about the quest for finding something that works better. So you take the time to do that. This is an obnoxious distance away. 57. Might just align it with the bottom here for some visual continuity. Something like that. And nobody can tell us that that doesn't work because, hey, it's a new UI element we just invented. Basically 41 pixels down, okay. That looks like it would be something I might see in a car. This just looks a little clunky by comparison, I think. These are very clearly the same control. That's good. This has got clear connections with these other ones here. So these are adjusters. I'm adjusting what the gestures do. That's good. I think that's passable. Let me see what the original looked like and put them side by side. Wow, that brightness bar looks massive now by comparison. But yeah, this feels like an elegant solve for it. Because it's one control. It's related, it's related, it's related. Yep, that feels good. That feels good. Okay. I don't know if it zhuzhes it up, but you might even play with something like this, where you have more of a dynamic style layout. You kids might not be ready for that yet, as they say. I don't know. I don't know if that makes it feel busier, sleeker, or, confused. I don't know. So I might just make a duplicate of it, pop it over there, put this guy back to normal, just to have a better sense for what our options are. I do think there's a certain charm to this. Yeah, I don't know. I'll come back to it, see with fresh eyes. I kind of worry that maybe putting it off center like this might put more attention on the odd man out than on the other elements on the screen. Whereas here, I don't feel like there's any one element that's really jumping out to me saying, look at me first, which is fine. I think I actually might prefer it because of that. So I'll use this as a new basis. Maximilian, I just saw you there. Don't know if you're still here. See, I just joined. I think the left one fits better. I'm actually not sure which left one we're talking about. I'm imagining we're talking about these two versions of the screen. The one that had this pin to the top and versus the one that had it floating in the middle. It says, as you said, the right one makes you look directly to it, what I think is not right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we're going to go in this direction, I think. Great to see you here. Yeah, I'm very new to YouTube. It's very hard for me to tell who is here or if anybody is here. So if folks are here, I really appreciate when they speak up until I, figure out how this all works. So we're going to borrow a window aesthetic from one of these others here. This one looks a little bit more native. It's really strange. I think there are more examples of this, but I didn't have any in the source video I had. These controls and these labels and these styles are pretty unique. They don't exist, like this button color doesn't exist anywhere else that I've seen in the raw video feed that I had. But when I was using the car, I feel like I saw this somewhere else, like when pairing your Bluetooth for your phone or something. Feels like a holdover from V10, but I'm not sure. That said, if it's not a holdover, I'm not exactly what it's used for and why it's used and all that. So I'd rather not guess. I'd rather stick with something that looks a little bit more native. Ultimately, people it matters most to are members of the viewing public, who are going to see this and is going to need to look right to you. So I might get that wrong. I might get that right. I might get that wrong. I do not know. 1120 here. 1120. Maximilian, you're saying, I think the centered modal doesn't look right. I don't know which one's centered exactly. I assume you're talking about this guy here. Gestures, gray modal here. As for the settings for the icons, I think it works well, but for the gesture settings, I think it should be like the network setting. Well, I want you to see what I'm thinking here before we draw conclusions, because I think there's some real benefits to doing it this way. But that sort of thing might not be evident until things are in a better state. It's got a long path between here and there in the meantime. I feel myself getting sleepy. I feel like this stream can't last much longer. I'm going to try to at least get this into a base, switch it from dark mode to light mode. I might actually just keep the dark mode version of it for visual similarity. But I don't know, I kind of want to see what it looks like in this way before I pass judgment. I think in this previous demo it made a lot of sense because you're making these icons which sit on a dark background, and so having it in a dark background already fit with that style and that aesthetic. That and the apps tab is also black when it's selected, so you select this one, it's the same. That'll make sense, I think. I think if we made this dark mode style, that it would be able to benefit from using the iconography in the same kind of way it was used before, and it would have a very consistent visual aesthetic between the two versions, between the two shortcut creation configuration screens. And that alone might be a good enough reason to do it. I just don't know if it'll feel jarring coming from this context into a dark context, or if it's going to feel perfectly fine. I don't know. So it's worth mocking this out and seeing. Thanks, Maximilian. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining. And thank you for the feedback as well. Always, always, always appreciate it. Anytime I find myself recreating an interface in a second location, it naturally leads to the question, wait. Why are we making a second interface? Why are we not doing that in the first context? And that makes a lot of sense. The only question is, if you were to go through these settings menus, how could you make it possible to select certain settings that they're buried in these. Take this out here. Certain settings that are sort of scattered throughout these things, and for example, it's been suggested that if I want to change this appearance or whatever else, I should be able to go to this part of the settings screen as it pops up, and then take this and put it down in the bottom bar somehow. I think it'd be very tricky to figure out for every type of option. For example, we got some drop down stuff here. Some are buttons that are toggles, some are toggles that are toggles, some are buttons that are buttons. To communicate in the interface in such a way that people would know that was something they could bring into the bottom bar for a shortcut, for example. And now we're talking about making gestures out of them. So again, it's not impossible to explore something like that, but a bit tricky to put it in the interface, sort of distributed throughout in a way that is going to be clear to people what it is used for and how that can be beneficial. But the real downside of that in my eyes is that it inherently clutters up every screen with new interface elements. I suppose there could be a way to do it that you just tap and hold on something and then it lets you drag or something. That gives you discoverability issues. People don't necessarily know I can tap and hold on a button and drag it. And it doesn't really answer the question of how would they drag it to gestures, for example. So not to say it's impossible. It seems to be adding overhead for the average person who wants to browse settings and find them in a clearer, more learnable way. For the sake of the users who want to have a more convenient way to get to some of those things. So for me, it makes more sense to try to keep at least one of the modes as clean as possible and as learnable and structured and obvious. And then to layer on top of that in additional ways that keep out of their way, ways to improve the speed. Keeping out of the way of newer users is an important piece of that. It's a tricky piece. And so we find ourselves adding these menus here in a different sort of a format, but in my eyes, this makes sense for the sake of keeping it clean for other folks, and for the sake of having really a streamlined way of selecting different items. So as a reminder, we're building one of these variations or a few of these variations to see how we like them. These are the columns across the top. I'm going to zip back into here and you see we got this 1, 2, 3. I imagine these sit at the top of some sort of modal, and then down below we would have either something like this, which I'm not crazy about because it's kind of heavy on screen, or something like this, where there's different swipe directions and you can choose the number of fingers that would control these. So if I switch it to 4 fingers, it would show me the shortcuts I have for 4. Switch it back to 5, it would show me the set I have for 5, or 3, or what have you. This one is exploring doing it more of a compass rose orientation, up, down, left, right, to make it a clearer connection between the direction the person will be swiping in and where they're putting the gesture. You drag your gesture that you want into these little slots, if I haven't said so already. So yeah, again, we're going to play with this and see which one of these we like the best for the sake of a demo. I think I'm just a moment away from finishing what I'm setting out to do for the night with the... There we are. So take that, take this guy here, let's say. And this is more or less what we're aiming for. I'm not 100% convinced on these. Might need to match this. But if it does so, yeah, it makes the text look disabled, so I'll leave it darker. Yeah, and then we're just gonna park this at the top of some screen. We didn't do that. Pull you back to here. So for example, here, I'll align this to the top. Go. And take this, move it a little bit further up, and then put slots down below for people to drop things in. And so I think this gives us a pretty good stopping point for the night. This is more accurately lined up with other interfaces, but I feel like this one feels more correct to have it further up, given the amount of stuff that we're going to be fitting vertically on what is very limited screen real estate. So we're going to pick this back up tomorrow, and just to remind ourselves of our remit, what we're making, and what more we need to do. I will say here, zoom out. Create an interface for assigning and customizing these shortcuts. That is very much the piece that we've been working on tonight. I would imagine that we're going to get that wrapped up pretty quickly tomorrow. We're pretty close to it now, but it is 2:14 in the morning. And then we move right on to showing a visual indication on screen. So that'll be some prototype work. Again, it should be fairly quick work, which I'm excited about. And then it's not shown here, but let's do it here. I guess it's shown here, if anything. Find a way to prototype this that looks compelling, right? How do we tell the most straightforward version of this story? So that is where you'll find me tomorrow. I'm going to call it there. Thank you, everybody who joined. Thanks to everybody who's coming in late. This was fun. We made some more progress than last time when my voice gave out in the first hour or so. But yeah, I'm excited. It's always fun to see a new interface coming together because your mind starts reeling about what it would actually be like to get your hands on it. So see you more tomorrow.